Hello, I'm Scott Brady with Expedition Portal and Overland Journal, and I am here in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina with one of the most exciting mid-sized trucks to come up on the market in decades. This is the AT4x Canyon. The Canyon has always been a good truck, but it's never been something we've really considered for overland travel until now. Just starting here on the front, the AT4x has a 3-inch factory lift over the standard model. This allows for the fitment of a 33-inch diameter tire on a beadlock capable wheel. Now this is a 17-inch diameter wheel with a full 33-inch diameter tire, and you can tell based upon the size of this wheel well that 35s won't be a stretch. Moving a little bit further forward, you can see that we're dealing with a high clearance front bumper, but they've gone one further on this first edition, and it's available on the other models of AT4x as well, where you can fit a factory winch. Now this is a ComeUp winch, which is a super high quality winch. I've used them all around the world. I even use them crossing Antarctica and Greenland. I've trusted ComeUp winches because they've been such high quality. They actually used to make all of the super winches as well. So this is a really good quality winch that's fitted to a hidden winch mount. So this is a heavy duty hidden winch mount that has a small brush guard on it. You can actually access the free spool clutch easily from the front. So you can see it here on the front, easy access to the free spool. We have a synthetic line and we have a Haas fairlead. You can also see that there is additional lighting capabilities here. So we have a light bar across the front, but it's also down low, so it's not impeding airflow in the grille. And then we've also got 2 fog lights into the hidden winch bumper. So you got plenty of light coverage in foggy situations, and then you have a broader coverage of light for off-road situations. The one thing that you notice immediately upon looking at the AT4x is just how wide it is. This is a 66-inch wide midsize, so it's pushing up close to the size of full-size trucks even just a couple decades ago. So this is a very stable vehicle. And moving towards that front axle, we've got driver selectable front locking differential. We've also got multimatic front suspension system. So not only is it 3 inches taller because of the lift, but it has additional overall travel and much better valving and vehicle control because of those spool valve technologies. So looking down the side of the vehicle, we can see that we have fully functional rock sliders. So these are actually structural components. They're not designed to come down like in rock racing, but you can easily come down onto the rock slider, slide along it, earthen berms, and it, of course, going to protect you from all kinds of other door dings. But these are high quality rock sliders that are tied up against the side of the vehicle and designed for off-road use. Okay, looking at this rear wheel well, you can see how much space there is. Again, fairly easy accommodation of a 35-inch tall tire. But these 33s look great, and that additional lift also provides a great deal more ground clearance. I also think these are a nice touch, these indicator lights along the side. And then we can also see that we have access here towards the multimatic suspension. So these are remote reservoir, integrated remote reservoir, spool valve technology shock absorbers. These are designed for use in F1, and it's only available on GM products. Overall, it gives much better vehicle control at low and high speeds. This rear axle is also a heavy-duty unit because it needs to be able to tow that 7,700 pounds, but it also has integrated in with it a driver-selectable electronic locking differential. But that's not the only traction control solutions that this vehicle has. On the AT4x, you can go into Baja mode, which opens up a lot of the tolerances around traction control and vehicle stability control. All right, so we are in Baja mode now, having some fun drifting the AT4x on a closed course. We're following the engineering vehicle in front of us. Full fun mode is Baja mode, 2-wheel drive in the transfer case, rear differential locked. And that's going to allow for maximum drifting as we're doing right now. Think of it as drifting in the desert. It's going to allow for a lot more of that, a lot more yaw out of the vehicle, and a lot more main shaft angle under high speeds before the vehicle starts to intervene. You can also go into general off-road mode, which is a little bit more relaxed version of Baja. It's going to have a little less traction control, a little less vehicle stability control intervention, really good for use on most gravel roads. The AT4X also has terrain mode. Now, terrain is designed for low-speed rock crawling, low-speed technical terrain, cross-axle terrain. Think big ledges, Moab, the Rubicon Trail, which these vehicles have driven across, by the way. So these are highly capable vehicles in terrain mode. This provides a lot of traction control intervention. So you can have the rear locker on, the front unlocked so that you don't get understeer in tight terrain, but you get really active traction control to minimize wheel spin. It also allows you to go into one pedal drive, and it allows for optimized throttle position, optimized throttle control and modulation, and it also maps the engine better towards rock crawling situations. So there are some important things to talk about with this drivetrain. First of all, we're used to the GMC Canyon coming with an available V6 gasoline motor and a 4-cylinder turbocharged diesel, common rail diesel. So now what's available is a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged gasoline motor. I certainly bemoan the loss of diesels, and GM has one of the best diesels on the market. In fact, the 3-liter in their full-size trucks is just a wonderful small displacement turbo diesel. But they have done so much tuning around this 2.7 liter gasoline engine that you get nearly the fuel economy of the 2.8 liter diesel, but you get actually much better overall performance. So only a slight reduction in fuel economy on the highway, but you get nearly twice the horsepower and even more torque than the diesel puts out. There's another real advantage to this engine as well. So it is a very compact motor overall. At 2.7 liters, it's a very compact motor, and it's pushed back far in the engine bay. So they've been able to move the weight rearward in the truck, which is going to improve overall balance and capability. And this makes 310 horsepower. It makes 430 foot-pounds of torque. It feels like a race truck. So let's talk about the back half of the AT4X. So one of the things that you'll notice is that the vehicle is significantly wider. This is their widened track vehicle. This is the widest track vehicle that they have at 66 inches wide. So we're starting to push up into wider than any midsize that we've seen so far. This particular model has a 5-foot bed, but a couple interesting things to note. So the tailgate drops down, of course, all the way as you would expect, and it's a soft opening tailgate, but then it's also got the ability to run the tailgate at kind of half height. So if you had a motorcycle in here, or if you had longer items from the hardware store, you could run it at half height. This display model has a truck bed rack in it with additional tie downs, and they have a Free Spirit Recreation. This is one of their 3-person tents up on top. So you can see how that would work, how a rooftop tent would work on this particular vehicle. So this rack is made by Elevate, and it's right at the cab height, so it allows for a longer roof tent. Inside the bed, it's easy to notice that they've got some thoughtfulness around lashing your gear, loading and lashing your gear. So we have multiple tie-down points. There's actually 4 tie-down points per side, plus this model has optional MOLLE panel down both sides of the bed and at the front of the bed in addition. So overall, there's a lot of options for securing gear. You can also have an optional 120 volt power system back here that puts out 400 watts for running accessories, charging cameras, etc. in camp. Another thing of note at the back of the AT4X, we have a steel bumper. We've also got replaceable plastic inserts should you get a little bit of trail or rock rash. But one of the things that's actually very unique about this truck is its towing capacity. So with 310 horsepower and 430 foot-pounds of torque, this long wheelbase allows for 7,700 pounds of towing. So we have a 2-inch receiver. We've also got a flat 4 connector and a 7-pin round connector. So you can tow a good sized trailer, or like in my case, I could tow my sailboat, which would weigh in at about 7,000 pounds. So that opens up a lot of possibilities for towing with this mid-sized truck. So let's go through the low speed capability of this vehicle. There's a bunch of components that are working together to make this truck very confidence inspiring at low speeds. That really starts from the ground up. So you have a 33-inch diameter Goodyear Wrangler Territory MT, which is very much like a hybrid tire. So it's not a super open pattern, which I actually prefer. And even in the mud today, it performed better than expected, but it also performed well at the higher speed sections at the beginning of the trail. So good tires. We also have a good diameter. So at 33 inches, you have over 11 inches of ground clearance for the vehicle because of the tire diameter. And then you have a 3-inch lift on it over the stock GMC Canyon. So it kind of comes out of the factory like people would typically modify their mid-sized trucks. So the fact that it has that much ground clearance means that we didn't scrape at all today, even on fairly technical terrain. And then part of what allows for that additional ground clearance, lift, and longer wheel travel is the multimatic DSSV dampers. So it is a coilover configuration in the front, and then it's a shock absorber in the rear. Both of them have a remote reservoir, and it uses this spool valve technology that responds very quickly and mechanically to inputs, which means on the highway, very plush, but also performs well at the limits of lateral G on the highway on the asphalt. So you don't get a lot of body roll out of the vehicle at high speeds, even during transitions. But then off highway, during moderate to large events, the spool valve technology will immediately, within milliseconds, mechanically ramp up the compression damping and also make adjustments to the rebound damping. So it's very effective in responding to the terrain conditions that you're driving. So every day you don't feel like you have a race suspension on the vehicle because it's nice and comfortable, plush, and secure handling. But then when you're driving at high speed on the dirt, you feel like you have a race suspension because it is. And then when you drive to low to moderate speeds on the dirt like we are now, with lots of rocks, big ruts, muddy holes, transitions, ledges, we're not getting that much head toss out of the vehicle. A little bit. It's a little bit firmer ride, but it's not bad. It's quite controlled, and a lot of driver confidence because it comes through these transitions and events like this one ledge that we hit in this mud hole. The vehicle would pop up but then settle right back down into providing traction to move forward through the deep ruts. So that's another thing. And then it just keeps getting better from there because we have advanced traction control that's available in terrain mode. So terrain mode basically turns the vehicle into one pedal drive like you would experience a lot of times with an EV, but you don't even really need to use the brake pedal. So you apply throttle and the vehicle moves forward. As you get closer to the vehicle starting to roll without throttle input, it actually starts to apply the brakes, puts those brakes under tension. Even under throttle at very low speeds, the brakes are under tension, so it works a lot like left foot braking. But one pedal drive is really quite good. Advanced traction control system, so if you have the rear differential locked and one front tire starts to spin because you don't have the front locked, it still will interrupt that wheel spin and help to provide forward progress by shifting some of the power towards the wheel that's operating at a slower rotating speed. So front traction control effective, rear traction control is effective, but then you can go rear locker or rear and front locker. So you really have all of the attributes that we need for low speed technical terrain driving. It's also a really nice looking truck, and got a bunch of kind of more modern and aggressive design language throughout the vehicle. The interior is very premium. If you were to look inside of a Denali version of the Canyon, you literally feel like you're in a luxury sedan. But very comfortable interior, heated and cooled seats, all kinds of level of appointment that we're not used to seeing in mid-size vehicles. So on this very rainy day here in Asheville, North Carolina, we are going to go through our conclusions inside of the truck. And there is a lot of positive things to talk about the AT4X. The primary pro is the fact that this vehicle has an incredible laundry list of hard parts that make it a very capable off-road vehicle. So starting with 33-inch tires, 3-inch lift, front and rear locking differentials, rock sliders, multimatic suspension, skid plates, the list goes on, even a factory available winch. So that is a high point. The second pro is the fact that all of it does work so well together. This is a vehicle that's delivered out of the box, one of the most capable mid-sizes ever produced, and it's all available under a warranty. So that is a real advantage for someone that's a new car buyer that just wants to be able to buy a vehicle and go and travel around the world, travel to their favorite overland route, and not really have to worry about a new vehicle. The other thing that I would say is a real pro for the GMC is the interior. To be able to combine that level of driving capability with this level of comfort is also very rarefied air in the midsize segment. So you can get what is nearly a luxurious sedan style interior with all of that capability. Also makes it very unique to the GMC. But we got to talk a little bit about the cons. In vehicles like this, one of the challenges that we've always experienced is the limited payload. So the AT4X that we were testing today has a payload of 1,212 pounds. So that is better than other vehicles in the segment, but not by much. So you are really limited on payload capacity. Now there is some things to think about with that. The vehicle comes ready to go. So it's got the sliders, it's got the winch, it's got the brush bar, it's got all of those high performance components already installed, the heavier tires, etc. So the fact that you have 1,200 pounds left means that that could be allocated to passengers, some gear, and maybe even a very lightweight camper. But we need to be mindful of the fact that these vehicles have limited payloads. The other thing that I noticed was in manual mode on the transmission, I was getting a lot of throttle delay. This was not the case in drive mode, and it got better and better and better as you went through the off-road modes. So off-road was better than normal, and then Baja was much better than off-road mode. So Baja gave the most direct throttle response, but you needed to be in drive. If you go into manual, or they call it L on their transmission selector, you can then move through the gears manually. So you would think that if you were in second gear, 3,000 RPMs, and you tipped into the throttle would be very direct, but it is not. It's actually quite a bit of delay. So it's important to note that if you're looking for the greatest amount of responsiveness, you want to be in Baja mode and then just in regular drive, because the vehicle does a really good job of holding gears, downshifting under throttle lift or braking, and then upshifting later in the RPM band. So we need to be aware of the fact that manual mode, a lot of throttle delay. And there is some throttle delay in general. It's not optimized around throttle responsiveness. And then the last thing that's notable is this is a fairly high performance truck. So if you're driving for longer distances, particularly if you're driving downhill and you're having some fun with it, you're doing trail braking like I was today. So late braking, heavy braking, trail braking to get the vehicle to rotate around the corner. This was on a closed course, by the way. To rotate around the corner, I actually experienced some brake fade and then a brake heat warning. It will actually go one step further and actually speed limit you to protect the brakes and obviously to protect the occupants. So a lot of performance in these multimatics, but you're still limited by what's very much a stock vehicle braking system. So just be aware that if you're going to run it really hard for a little bit longer time, that
braking heat can be an issue. It was a cool day today as well, so surprised to see the brake fade within even less than 10 minutes of driving. So that's something to be aware of. But overall, huge compliments to GMC for continuing to double down on overlanding, continuing to double down on the AT4X line, and most importantly, continuing to double down, and in their case, triple down on the AEV packages. So we now have an AEV package in the Canyon, we have an AEV package in the 1500 Sierra, and we now have an AEV package in the HD. Nice job, GMC. Let's see what comes next.